Hello again. Today we're going to look at a few things about two variable truth tables. So we're still in chapter 6. This is really part 2. So we're going to walk around in part B of chapter 6. The first thing is we're going to look at a couple of examples here of regular arguments, and I hope you can see them. I'll read them out loud just in case. The first one we're going to look at is this one here. Jane has cupcakes. Jane has chocolate. Therefore, Jane has cupcakes and chocolate. Okay. Pretty easy, simple argument, right? And that's kind of the point here with the two variable truth table. These are our simple ones so we can get used to kind of figuring things out and formatting, so the harder ones will be easier. Two things I want you to remember every time you look at one of these arguments, whether they're very complex or like this one, very simple. Look for your indicator words, look for your connectors, and look for periods, okay? The end of a period, end of a sentence, is really usually the end of your premise or the end of your conclusion. Every time you see a therefore, that's a clue that that's your conclusion. The other one that comes up with that is so. So Jane has cupcakes and chocolate. Same thing, okay? So keep those things in mind. Keep those running around your head when you're trying to figure these things out. And we're going to look at a couple of these, kind of walk through them, how you set them up, what you do with them once you have them set up, and then we'll go on from there. The real reason we're doing truth tables is to decide whether our argument is valid or invalid. Okay, that's our end game. But to get there, we have to walk through a few steps. Okay, so if it seems a little tedious, it kind of is, but it works the same way all the time. It always works, and you don't have to worry about whether it's right or wrong because it's always the same thing. Okay, so first of all, Jane has cupcakes. Jane has chocolate. I have periods at the end of both of those. Period here at the end. And the only real indicator word I have is here, okay? Now, I have one connector here in my conclusion, right? So those are my important things. The way we set up our standard form argument, okay, is to translate this into variables, okay? Mostly, remember, we use P's and Q's and R's. And again, if that's a little too abstract, think of them as penguins and quail and rabbits. And that way, it's pretty easy to figure out. Okay, hold on to. So here I have my first premise, Jane has cupcakes. Okay, that's going to be my constituent P. Okay, so my first premise is just P. Okay, second premise. Okay, next thing. I have Jane has chocolate. It's different from my first one, right? So I have to give it a different variable. Okay, in this case, it's going to be my Q. So my second premise is just Q. Easy peasy. You guys are going to get tired of me hearing me say that. Okay, and then at the end here, I have kind of an interesting put together. We say this all the time. Therefore, Jane has cupcakes and chocolate. Really, what we mean is Jane has cupcakes and Jane has chocolate. But since we're using the same subject and verb there, we really don't need them. Okay? So chocolate is again my Q. And, oops, wrong color. And Jane has cupcakes is again my P. Okay? So here I have, therefore, my three little dots make a triangle, therefore, P and Q. Okay? Now, the fun thing about this truth table is it looks just like the one we made is our conjunction table. Okay? So we know how to set this up, right? We have two variables. We have two truth values. We have two variables, so we're going to need 4 rows. Okay? So we have P and Q. This one here. This one here. And then we have our therefore P and Q. Okay? That's our setup. That's it. Okay? And we know 2 by 2s for the first one, my half and half rule. 1 by 1, true, false, true, false. Okay? Now we also know for our for our conjunction, we have both of them have to be there or it's false. Okay? So if I just have cupcakes or I just have chocolate, it's false. Okay, so our only time this is true is our very first line. True and true is true. True and false, not 2. False and true, still not 2. False and false, 0. Okay, so the only time we're true is here. Now, here's the thing. On this one, because we're actually using it as an argument, we have a couple of things we can do. We have to look at our false conclusions to see if we have both, in this case, all true premises, okay? So what I do is, okay, these are my premises, right? Premise 1, premise 2, this is my conclusion. So I'm looking only at my false ones. Well, this one has almost all false ones, okay? So here's my false conclusion. I have one false premise here, so I'm good. And if it helps, just put a little check mark. Same thing for my true. All of my true conclusions are fine. I don't have to worry about them. I only have to worry over here when it's a false conclusion, but true premises. Okay? So my second line here, false. I have a false premise, so he's okay. My last line, I have both of these are false, so he's definitely okay. So this is a valid argument. We already knew that, right? Because it looks exactly like our conjunction table, okay? So this one's true, true, true. Valid, valid, valid. All the way down, okay? Not so hard, right? Okay, let's look at Jane again. Jane has cupcakes or Jane has chocolate. Jane doesn't have chocolate, so Jane has cupcakes, okay? So this time, we go through the same little process, okay? Here's my connector. And I have this kind of hiding knot here. Here's my other hiding thing. This is my therefore. And here are my periods. No, I didn't do a period here. You have to pretend it's there, okay? Promise. Ding. Okay? So I have 3 lines again. And I have my cupcakes is my P. So go find cupcakes again. She has cupcakes down here. And chocolate is my Q. Okay, Jane doesn't have chocolate. That's my not Q. Okay. I say okay a lot. I gotta figure out how to make that go away. Anyway, so my first premise is P or Q. Okay, my little wedge there is my or. My second premise, Jane has chocolate. Yay! Q. Okay. Oh, sorry, back that up. Try again. Jane doesn't have chocolate. Not Q. Sorry for Jane. Therefore, Jane has cupcakes. Yay, cupcakes. Okay. Now, this one is still going to work out just like our disjunction did, except that it's kind of inside out. So, I'll show you how to do that too. We have, in this case, 2 variables. Okay. Even though one of them has a not, that's really a relationship, not a different variable. Okay. So we still have our P and our Q. And this is our guide. They're not actually going to show up in our argument. So then, once we have this, we have to have the rest of our argument. We have to have each of our premises and our conclusion get their own column. Okay? So the next piece here, P or Q, and I like to put something around them, parentheses around them, so that I know that's all I'm working with. The next premise is not Q. My conclusion is P. Okay, and I always put the little dots above them so I know where my conclusion is. It's always the last one, so you don't really have to have the dots on top, but sometimes I get long Anyway, I have two variables. Okay, so again, two truth values, always, always, that's our constant. Two variables, 4 rows. So I can set up my P's and Q's the same way all the time. True, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. Okay? These first two things in a 4-part, always the same. Always, 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 always the same. Okay? So then you have to figure out your relationships, and that's what we use the guide part for, relationship between P or Q. Okay? When we have our disjunction, and that's going to be on page 198, we have that little table. Okay? Again, look for your odd man out. The only time a disjunction, an or, is false is when they're both false, when both of my elements are false. So I'm going down my list. I have a true, I have one true, I have one true, I have 2 falses. There I'm false. Okay? So far so good. The other piece we're working with in this one is a negation. Okay? A negation is basically opposite day. Okay, so you have, and all you're looking at is your Q line, this Q thing here, okay, just this guy. Okay, so not Q is the opposite of Q. So if Q is true, not Q is false. If Q is false, not Q is true. Q is true, not Q is false. And again, if it's false, he's true. Okay, not hard, not horrible. The last piece here, our conclusion, is P. Now, somebody's going to ask or think in their heads, of course, do I really have to have this again because it's the same thing? Well, I guess technically not, if you can hold the fact in your head that this first piece here is actually your conclusion. I just find it easier to write it down and get it out of my way, okay? So, copy it exactly. True, true, false, false, okay? And Dr. Bond doesn't put these vertical lines in like I do, but again, I'm a very visual learner, so I try to make things very clear, like my lines. So I don't have to worry about these guys because they're my guide. They're not actually part of my argument. So I'm looking at my conclusion, and I only have to check my false ones, right? So I can automatically put little check marks by my 2 truths. They're good. They're happy guys. And then I'm going to look at my first false conclusion. I have 1 false premise, so he's okay. Again, my other false guy, he has 1 false premise, so he's okay. So this is a valid argument, okay? Remember, in order for me to have an invalid argument, I have to have a false conclusion and all true premises, okay? So if I have even 1 false premise, say I have 10 premises, okay? We're not going to do those, that big of a truth table, but if I have 10 true premises, okay, and a false conclusion, it would be an invalid argument. If I had 9 true and 1 false, it would be a valid argument, okay, because the rule is it's impossible for a valid argument to have a false conclusion but all true premises, okay? So I hope that's been helpful. Walk through a conditional, we're going to do that as well, but I hope this part's been helpful so far. I'm going to erase some stuff, so don't freak out. You can always back it up and see it again. Hopefully that was clear enough you won't have to see it again, and I'm just babbling because you're looking at my back anyway, so it's kind of weird. Okay, a conditional, okay? Going back to Jane and her cupcakes. If Jane has cupcakes, then she has chocolate. Okay? She has cupcakes. So she has chocolate. Okay, that's my easy one. That is an easy one, but we're gonna walk through it anyway. Okay, so again, I go through my list. I'm looking for if, then, so. I'm looking for periods or other end marks. Okay. Exclamations sometimes work. Remember we talked about this in chapter 3. Questions do not work. Commands do not work. But if we're really excited about a declaration, we'll put an exclamation point. She has cupcakes, yay, so she has chocolate. Okay? So here's all my messing up. I know I have 2 premises and a conclusion again, so 3 lines in my argument. And then we're going to figure some other things out. Okay, so again, my P here is Jane has cupcakes. She has chocolate. Then we're Q. Okay, chocolate here, also Q. She has cupcakes. Another P. Okay, so I have my constituent pieces labeled. I know what I've got to do here, so now I can translate. Okay, so if P, then Q. P, therefore Q. Okay, easy little argument. And again, it's going to be kind of a backwards setup as our conditional is. Need my spots here. Okay, so again, I'm going to have P and Q. Those are my guides. Yeah. And I'm going to have to set up each of my pieces here, each of my premises, get their own column. Okay, again, I'm going to do this so I can keep things apart. And I'm going to set up my P's and Q's the same way. I have my 2 truth values always. I have my 2 variables, so I have 4 rows. So I know I'm going to do 2 by 2 in my first line, and 1 by 1 in my second line. Okay? And again, the reason we do this is each one of these 4 have to be unique. No 2 can be alike, or we're not looking at all the possible situations we could get into in this argument. And that's what a truth table does. It shows us all the possible configurations so that we can see if it's possible for it to be invalid. Okay? So, true, true. Okay? So, if P, then Q. Again, our odd man out is if the first piece, the first element is true, but the second element is false, then we're false. Okay, so I go down my list until I find, oh, there he is, second one. So this is false, everybody else is true. And you can look at page 201 and see if I'm right. Okay, again, we have some very easy pieces here for the other 2 pieces, other 2 elements. We have Q here, and we have a Q here. Okay, so we just copy it down, true, false, false. And we have a P here and a P here. So it's true, false, false. And that's our whole truth table. Okay, got it all figured out. Now what we have to do is figure out whether or not this is a valid argument. Okay, we're pretty sure it is, but we're checking. Okay, so I don't have to worry about my guide stuff. I just have to worry about this one, and I'm not very good at straight lines. Hang on. And that one. Okay, so I go down the line. My truths are okay. Don't have to worry about them. My false conclusion has 1 false premise, so that one's fine. My false conclusion has 1 false premise, so that is fine. And this is valid. I'm not sure why I'm starting with the P, but you know. This one's valid. Okay? These are just one thing at a time. Okay, so we've got some interesting stuff here. I'll have to show you a couple of other things about negation as we go along, but that's pretty much it for part 2. This is 6B. As far as homework and stuff, I think most of it goes. 2 variables. Most of the time, you're going to have a very simple argument. Sometimes it may be elaborated on, and you'll have lots of other words in there, but really look for your connections and they'll show you what your pieces are, okay? Look for periods so you can think about what your, I'm going the wrong way. So you can look at what your, where your premises end, where your conclusion begins with so or therefore, and then line your lines up exactly like that. Make sure each premise has its own column, and make sure that your columns match all the way across. Lined paper is your friend. Okay, so let me know if you have questions, and that's the end of part 2.